Hello everyone, this is part 43 of What If Naruto Had the Ultimate Dojutsu, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. A child, one of the purest forms of life that come into existence in the world. The parents feel joy, pride and accomplishment. Parents go through great lengths for their children. To see one hurt is to break the shackles of a parent's sanity. They will risk it all, put their lives in danger, and destroy anything to have the children. A righteous rage that flows through the heart that wants to be unleashed, let out the anger and allow it to flow. It brings about the change that any enemy would shudder at. Rokudaime Hokage Naruto, step away from the carrier of the light, Toby said, holding Yuna in his arms. Naruto, Kasumi and Tsunade gasped in utter shock as Toby continued. Naruto broke out of the shock first and snarled. Put her down. Now, Naruto demanded, but Toby ignored him while he pulled a kunai closer to Yuna's face, getting Naruto to halt in his advance. Or this child's just minutes of its birth, he finished, and Naruto instantly growled, his features changing as his anger grew, before he turned to see the white fires continuing to spread around Kasumi's body. Hey, hold on a second. Just calm down, Naruto shouted, and Toby snickered. This teen really was just like his father. He then handed Yuna to Sato and shrugged. I'm perfectly calm here. As I said, step away from the carrier of the light right now. Toby ordered, and Naruto glared dangerously at Toby in anger of this current situation as his eyes already began to show the power of Kyuubi's influence. Whoa there, you will calm down. Your fates are entirely in my hands, he said, and Naruto growled as he inched away from Kasumi. He still kept his eyes on her while Kasumi shuddered. She couldn't believe this situation right now. How could it happen? What was going on here? Too slow, Toby said, and Sato threw the crying Yuna into the air. Naruto and Tsunade gasped while Kasumi shouted. Yuna! Kasumi shouted, and Sato drew his sword and was more than ready to end Yuna's life as his sword was mere inches from the baby's form before Yuna vanished and Naruto appeared to have grabbed her just in time. He smiled at his daughter before he heard a sizzle. He widened his eyes to explosive tags on Yuna's clothes and cursed at the top of his breath. Yuna! Kasumi shouted, and Naruto acted fast as he vanished in the Hiraishin away from Kasumi and Tsunade. He could only hope that Tsunade would handle the situation upon his leave. Well, it seems he really does think like his father, Toby said before he noticed Tsunade moved between him and Kasumi. She angrily poured chakra into her fist and charged with a loud shout of anger as she was ready to strike the man in front of her down to the ground for not only Kasumi, but also Naruto and Shizune. Tsunade's fist was mere inches from Toby's face before she was blocked, much to her surprise, by Sato with his sword. He just stared at her impassively, and Tsunade growled while Toby passed her. The slug Sanin tried to turn her body, but she underestimated Sato's speed since just as she turned, so did he, and he seemed to be much faster than her. He blocked her away while Toby looked at Kasumi. Futile. You're coming with us, he said, and Tsunade witnessed Kasumi walked away into a wormhole and vanished while Toby chuckled. He gave one more look to Tsunade before he walked Sato away as well. Tsunade, seeing her chance, charged at Sato in more anger as she tried to aim for his mask, but gasped as she passed through his entire body. Her fist into the wall while Toby shook his head. Your village will remember. It will remember history. I shall be the one to remind it, Toby said, and soon he disappeared as well, leaving Tsunade along with an unconscious Shizune in the room. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. What the hell just happened? Naruto, I hope you're alright, but you'd better haul a damn it. Now I need to get to Shizune, Tsunade said to herself, and she knelt next to Shizune and felt her pulse. She breathed a sigh of relief as she knew Shizune was still breathing. Let's get you out of here, Tsunade said as she picked up Shizune, who mumbled something incoherent, before Tsunade shunshined out of the area. With Naruto, upon leaving the scene of the incident, shocked nearly every UNI member at the compound as he threw away Yuna's clothes and lid across the ground while people heard a heavy explosion soon after and everyone raced out of their houses. They saw Naruto curse as he slid across the ground and nearly into the wall. Phew, that was too close, Naruto said before he looked down and gently smiled at his daughter. She was still crying, but he could figure why. He saw the other members coming to his aid while the blonde looked back down. Hey, come on, Yuna-chan. No father wants to see the daughter cry. But even so, Naruto trailed off as he thought back to that. Whoever that guy was, he would pay, but first Naruto would have to go and get Kasumi. They would be around, Yuna would have parents. She would have her family. Naruto's life be damned if it meant that Yuna could be happy. Naruto-kun, what happened to you? Sume asked and Naruto calmly stood up to his feet. He walked into the main house and everyone who had been relaxing had seen Naruto come in. They eyed the bundle in the cloth and most people smiled. Naruto-kun, is that? Fu asked and Naruto quickly placed Yuna in a makeshift bed while the blonde smiled. He had to ignore that question for right, but he could see many of the people smile at the little girl. One thing Naruto noticed was that Yuna also had her mother's ears. Sochi, where is Kasumi? Kushina asked and Naruto's eyes immediately flashed in hatred while Kyuubi, Nibi and Nanabi narrowed their eyes. Kyuubi seemed to be the most afraid of his reaction while Naruto just stood up. Ka-chan, keep an eye on Yuna-chan. I'll be right back, Naruto said and shunshined out of the building while some people looked at each other. Kanari chose this chance to get up and walk to Kushina. I fear we're about to see a repeat, she said and Kushina widened her eyes. No, not again. It couldn't happen. Not to her son's child. Why? Why would this happen again? Damn it, what was fate doing? With Kasumi. Kasumi coughed against a stone slab that she had been pinned to. Right beside her were Tobi and Sato. The former just glaring at her while Kasumi glared back, but right now she was a dog with no bite. She was tired, her body was hurting and she just didn't feel like moving at the moment. Can you do it? Tobi asked and Sato nodded his head. He turned to his master while he withdrew his sword. I was the original carrier to the light Tobi-sama. I know of the releasing technique, Sato said and Tobi nodded as he backed up. Kasumi growled at them both, baring her canines to them. It was an empty threat, and she couldn't do much. Inside of Kasumi's body, Tsukasa growled in anger of her carrier. She could see that he was being controlled but that didn't make her feel any better. Sato did know how to get her out. Tsukasa had gotten into Kasumi and she could be taken out, but only by those who knew the words to her release and unfortunately, Sato was one of those people. When I get out I'll strike them both. I swear it, Tsukasa said to herself and Sato pressed his sword just mere inches from Kasumi's stomach. He glared at her before moving back to his goal at hand. Tobi watched on with interested but allowed his to do his bidding. O light, the humble one. The thing that burns on the darkness. Release yourself, bring to life your power. You aren't tied down by anything. You light up the night with your power. Hear the commands of your original owner. Take flight and come out. Obey the will of your carrier. Sato shouted and just like that Kasumi's body arched back and she cried while the white fire poured from her body. It went into the air and even Tobi was surprised as the fire began to take shape. It grew wings, and two tails, along with its scaly-looking face and its enormous claws. Tobi just grinned behind his mask and watched as Tsukasa dropped to the ground with a loud roar. Her wings opened up while she glared at Tobi and Sato. A dragon. How quaint for a new reminder, Tobi thought to himself while Tsukasa turned her gaze to them both. You'll pay, she shouted as she raised her claw over them. Sato stood impassively before Tsukasa saw Tobi's Sharingan begin to spin. She gasped and the same Sharingan appeared in her eyes and took over her while Tobi grinned. Well then, let's get started, Tobi said and Tsukasa growled while Kasumi's body dropped to the ground. She struggled to keep from passing out from having Tsukasa extracted forcefully from her body before she struggled against her pain and growled. You. What do you think you're doing to Tsukasa? Kasumi shouted while Tobi and Sato turned to her and the former just chuckled while he looked up at the moon high in the sky. What do I want? For this to be another reminder. Yeah, I will show them what they have forgotten. I will also take this chance to cause more damage than before. Minato stopped me, but I doubt his son has the same spark. I know he's not the same, Tobi said and Kasumi glared dangerously at him. Naruto-sama is Naruto-sama. He is not Minato-san. He will stop you. That is, the man that I fell in love with. That is also the man I had my child with. Kasumi shouted and Toby glared at her. I suppose. Well, to commemorate this event, and since you were this thing's first carrier, how about I have it crush you? Toby asked while Kasumi widened her eyes. She looked at expectingly while Tsukasa roared. She huffed and Tsukasa's body turned around while her eyes glared on Kasumi's form. Tsukasa roared again at Kasumi and raised her claw into the air before bringing it down on Kasumi while the dog girl looked up with only one thought. Tsukasa, why? Kasumi asked before the ground exploded from Tsukasa's power. She growled before she glared in front of her. Sato, Toby and Tsukasa noticed Naruto drop to the top of a tree while he held Kasumi in his arms. He had felt the very power source of Tsukasa in a general direction and made his way there. That's the only reason he was able to find her that time. Kasumi-chan, are you okay? Naruto asked and Kasumi shivered. She was obviously happy with Naruto's presence as her tail slightly wagged left and right, but she then frowned. Yuna-chan, is she alright Naruto-sama? I want to see her, Kasumi said and Naruto nodded his head. He then just turned his head and casted the most glare he could at Toby, who only seemed to shudder for a moment as he was sure that he might have seen a combination of the Shinseinagon and the Sharingan in both of Naruto's eyes before he Hirashined home. Toby just smirked at the leaving cage and nodded. Well, I'll get to work. You, stay back and make sure that I spot no one who interferes, Toby said and Sato bowed before he left in a quick hurry while Toby looked at Tsukasa. He then turned his gaze towards the direction Konoha was in and nodded to himself. With Naruto, people, who were still in confusion, were all suddenly surprised as Naruto appeared to the ground of the house. Naruto-kun, what is going on? Why is Kasumi so tired? Haku asked and Naruto just growled lowly before he gently placed Kasumi next to Yuna. Tayuya and Kimimaro had just come out of their rooms and saw the incident unfold. Hey, what the F just happened? Tayuya asked, but no one seemed to have an appropriate answer for her in the slightest. Here Kasumi-chan, he said and Kasumi turned to see Yuna softly sleeping while she smiled. Her tail wagged happily while she licked Yuna's cheek before pulling her close. Yuna Uzumaki Namikaze, Mayan Naruto-sama's child, Kasumi said as she happily and rubbed her cheek to her daughter's cheek again while crying a few tears. Naruto saw the whole interaction and balled his fists enough to make them be before he walked upstairs. Kasumi, what happened to you? What isn't Naruto telling us? Kiba asked and Kasumi just shivered. She told everyone about everything that had happened and that all but confirmed it with Kyubi and Kushina. Kushina sneered and quickly everyone saw her unseal her Anbu armor that she had kept hidden. She strapped everything on while people heard her speak. Not again. No way, Databane. I will not let it happen again. I wasn't there, but this won't happen. You won't get your way again. Kushina said as she stood up and strapped her sword to her waist. I'm going with you. I have my own vendetta to take care of, Kanari said and Kushina just stared at her friend. She wasn't sure if the village was going to be ready for another encounter like Kyubi, but Kushina couldn't pull forces, but Konoha was much stronger this time. This time everyone was experienced. They had Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, Guy, Jiraiya and Tsunade. They could come up with something this time. If you want to, she said and everyone heard the clattering of footsteps as they turned to see Naruto walking down in his orange Hokage cloak. He had a Jonin vest under it and his 5 swords were strapped to his waist. Kanari, let us come with you. Ni and I can be of some help to you, Nanabe said and Nibi nodded, but Kyubi just raised her hand silencing her sisters while she turned around. No, I don't think you should. Just one of us will throw them into a panic. I should be me and I know that they will try to attack me, but I will have the best shot. You need to stay here in case anyone comes back for Kasumi or Yuna. Is that right? Kyubi asked while Nibi and Nanabe nodded reluctantly before Naruto spoke. Ka-chan, rally the shinobi. Evacuate the civilians and ready seals. We're leaving, Naruto said and just like that, Kushina nodded, while Naruto opened and the door enough to almost break it apart. Ka-san, what is happening? Kiba and Hana asked while Sum sighed. You're both about to see a similar situation to the Kyubi incident. I want you both to be well on your guard. The Jonin tell you to do something then you do it. Also you will look out for each other. I'm not letting that rotten bastard get away with this, Sum said while Hana brought the Heimaru brother as Kiba brought Akamaru. All the shinobi began to leave with the exception of a few who looked after Kasumi. With Toby, people chuckled and laughed with each other, and most shinobi could be seen walking the streets or having drinks with their friends. They didn't know. They were blissfully unaware of the events unfolding, but they would know. They would know that the gears of fate were turning again, and just like last time, they were in the crossfire. Toby walked out and landed on the ground. He looked left and right, checking if he was in the clear. Seeing that he was, he just smirked and raised his hand into the air. Time for you to remember. Kuchio's no jutsu, Toby shouted as he s the ground. The summoning seal appeared, and it took a bit of time since who he was summoning took some chakra, but that would be alright. However, soon enough, a large blast of smoke appeared in Konoha, and it was impossible to notice. People widened their eyes to the sudden act as the wind rushed past them. People braced against the walls and ledges before they noticed a large form in the smoke. It growled, and people widened their eyes before its wings blasted outward, and it roared. No, no please, not again. Why us? Not again. People shouted before they ran screaming, monster, demon, and many other things while Tsukasa roared. Her eyes glowed red before her roar washed over the village. She raised her scaly claw, and just like that, she s it down to the ground while the destruction followed as people screamed and ran for cover. That one claw strike had shook the earth on people's feet, bringing a painful reminder of their past while Tsukasa rampaged through the village as she destroyed buildings and structures. Her wings bashed into other Konoha structures to the side, and her two tails s the ground, buildings, and people behind her before fire began to spread. She roared against the masses as people were swept away. Her roar echoed while people began to run in screams away from her, and the flames began to erupt at her feet. The shinobi of the village noticed the painful reminder of their past, and everyone quickly began to act. The Anbu in the area had heard the crashes, as did the Chunin, Jonin and Genin. The Anbu sped across the platforms and began to assault Tsukasa with kunai and explosion tags while she growled and continued to rampage. All Genin evacuate the citizens. Do it now. A Jonin shouted, and most of the Genin gulped, but they nodded and quickly began to help in the evacuation of Konoha's civilians. Konohamaru noticed man on the ground and tried to shake him awake before Iruka appeared in front of him. Konohamaru, don't stop. You have to get the others to safety. Iruka shouted, and Konohamaru widened his eyes before he nodded and began to run away along with Udon and Mogi. Iruka growled and stared at the large dragon in front of him before he gripped a kunai. Jiraiya and Kakashi, who has been having a drink, had heard the explosion and quickly began to move right away. They saw Tsukasa around the village roaring away and showing her rage, and even Jiraiya was startled. What? How? Why? Where did this come from? Kakashi, is this what it was like? Jiraiya asked as he wasn't there for Kyuubi's rampage. Kakashi just nodded his head and glared forward dangerously before he and Jiraiya charged off. Tsukasa's tail swiped into the buildings, destroying them all and crushing the people underneath her body. She moved through the village while the shinobi followed her. Where is Hokage-sama? A Jonin asked as another shouted a Kaiten jutsu and watched it s into Tsukasa's face. She growled and quickly continued her destruction of Konoha while other shinobi shook their heads. Hokage-sama is coming, but for right now you will all start taking my orders. Kushina shouted as she appeared down. Right behind her was Yugao in her own Anbu armor. All of the Anbu saluted their commanding officer of the Anbu division. Hi Kushina-sama, what are your orders? An Anbu asked, and Kushina turned to seeing Tsukasa jump into the air before landing, crushing more buildings. Kushina cursed and her mind raced through all the scenarios that she could possibly come up with, and this wasn't supposed to be one of them. Drive it out of the village. We have to hurry. Also, has anyone seen Tsunade, Jiraiya or Kakashi? Kushina asked, and everyone shook their heads while she snorted and ran off with the others behind her in tow. With Naruto. Naruto acted fast and appeared on top of the Hokage stone faces. He stood right on the Yondaim's head and felt a small sense of nostalgia, but it wasn't a good one. Had he done this before? Naruto shook his head and stood to his feet while he stared at Tsukasa destroying the village. He narrowed his eyes at her before Tsukasa growled and turned her gaze to Naruto. So she saw me from all the way over there. Not bad Databayo, Naruto said to himself before he saw Tsukasa open her mouth. What? Why is Tsukasa out? Naruto-sama, how did she get out? It should be impossible, and this destruction. What in Kami-sama's name is she doing? Raiga shouted angrily and the other swords could see the destruction as well while Naruto gave them all the complete rundown. Sato, it had to be Sato. He's her original carrier and he would be the only one who knows how to get her out. This is troubling. Yugisa and everyone grew tense while Naruto saw white fire appear in Tsukasa's mouth. He gasped and quickly did some hand signs while Tsukasa sent a roaring white fire at the blonde Rokudaime Hokage. It burned through the village as it quickly began to appear at Naruto's face before the blonde growled and held out his hand. Immediately a large sand wall came between them and Naruto noticed that his sand was already beginning to crystallize from the heat of Tsukasa's fire before he made a separate hand sign as a large array of seals appeared over the fire and Naruto drew his hand back as the seals pulled the fire inside. He continued with great pressure evident on his face before the fire and sand quickly vanished from his view and he s his hands together. Far away from the village, the seals appeared and fired the white fire away to a safe distance where they exploded allowing Naruto to catch a glimpse of the burning forest right behind him. He glared and shook his head as he didn't have the time to worry about that. Wow, Kasumi-chan really carried a kicker, didn't she? She's probably as strong as Kyuubi-chan. Well, in any case, if 2-chan's seals can hold up, then I'll have to redirect her power away to safer places. But where? Naruto continued to ponder before he sensed a presence behind him. The blonde, in one swift motion, flashed Yugisa through the person's skull, but he widened his eyes as he passed through him like he was a ghost before he quickly passed through and Toby grabbed his arm. Just like your father, your village will know despair. I will be your opponent, Hokage-sama, Toby said, bring up the name with extra spite before he and Naruto glanced at each other and Toby was surprised at Naruto's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. The two dueled, but Toby began to suck Naruto away and the blonde gasped as he felt his presence fleeting before he concentrated and vanished out in a hurry leaving Toby on the Hokage stone faces. He balled his hand and chuckled. How fast? Just like his father. No, he's probably just a little bit faster. I was surprised by his Sharingan. He knew the exact moment to vanish out before securing a simple jutsu. He might just have a purpose other than his death when I extract the Kyuubi from his body. Isn't that right, Yondaime? Toby asked as he watched Tsukasa roar again as he left. With Konoha, Tsukasa's claw swiped through the village releasing a wave of fire through it while her tails continued to thrash about. She was about to continue before she was punched across the face. Tsukasa turned her gaze only to see Tsunade growled at her and made her shift backwards while she shook her head. If this keeps up then Konoha is finished. A Chunin said before he was smacked over the head. Calm down, damn it. This isn't the place for the weak-hearted, Tsunade shouted as right behind her were Kurenai, Kakashi, and Jiraiya. The clan heads hand gathered around her as did Kushina and a few Anbu. Godaime-sama, Jiraiya-sama, Kushina-sama, he said and they walked through a group of people whole Tsunade cracked her en and her knuckles. We're Konoha shinobi. We're going to do what we should drive this thing out of the village. Let's go. Tsunade shouted and everyone nodded in roars of encouragement before they all heard a separate roar. One very different than Tsukasa's and turned their heads to the direction. The sight made people pale and gulp as Kyuubi charged into the village. She growled lowly and a lot of people screamed. Are Kyuubi's free? Where is Hokage-sama? Is he s? Hokage-sama? Civilians cried out all over the place and the Jonin and Chunin glared dangerously at Kyuubi before the Bayou disregarded everyone around her and s her shoulder in a charge against Tsukasa sending the white dragon to the ground with a crash. Tsukasa roared against Kyuubi before Kyuubi used her 9 tails to restrain Tsukasa. They both growled and the shinobi were surprised. Kyuubi's helping us. What's going on here? A Chunin asked and Kushina couldn't resist the urge to crack a smile while Tsunade and Jiraiya just stared in awe. The civilians continued to run being guided by the genin and a few Chunin as they ran to shelters. All were screaming at the terrifying sight of Kyuubi back in the village before a few people heard a little girl, who was being carried by her mouth, ask something. Mommy, you said that Kyuubi was a monster. Then, why is it saving us? A girl asked and anyone who heard her had stopped running instantly. Those words didn't sound right to them. They all looked up and they noticed Kyuubi not attacking them, but restraining Tsukasa's movements with her tails. What was going on here? Kyuubi gritted her teeth at Tsukasa before one of Tsukasa's tails s her in the side causing Kyuubi to crash into the ground. People just watched the act left and right between the two giant beasts as did the Godaime Hokage as everyone was absolutely floored. Godime-sama, what shall we do? What are your orders? Anbu asked. Everyone held up their weapons at the ready and Tsunade balled her fists. Jiraiya glanced towards her and nodded while Tsunade nodded also. She just sighed and shook her head before turning around. Kyuubi is not the concern right now. Concentrate your fire. Attack the dragon in front of you. Tsunade ordered and most people glanced to each other. They looked to see Kyuubi and Tsukasa glaring at each other before they nodded. They would have to deal with Kyuubi later. Right now it was helping and they would have it back it up. If it helped then it couldn't be all bad. Tsunade-sama's right. All of you get going. Kushina shouted and the people all nodded and roared before they jumped off and across the streets, rooftops, and buildings. Tsukasa opened her mouth and launched a large white fire at Kyuubi who blocked it with her tails. She roared before she tried to grab Tsukasa again, but the dragon easily dodged and swiped Kyuubi across the face getting a groan of pain from her before Tsukasa raised her hand again. Kyuubi snarled while Tsukasa brought it down with a loud crash. With Kasumi smiled while she looked at Yuna's sleeping body. Nibi and Nanabi were watching her as well from where they were sitting while the house shook around. The clattering of pictures, dishes and ornaments were heard while Nibi and Nanabi cursed and began to clean up the house. Kasumi sighed before she opened her eyes to Yuna's crying. Oh Yuna-chan, don't worry. Papa is taking care of everything. He's gonna make the bad man pay, Kasumi said, but Yuna continued to cry right away and this saddened Kasumi. Oh that's right Yuna-chan. Would you like a present from Naruto-sama? Kasumi asked as it was then that she remembered something and coughed as she leaned up. Kasumi's tail wagged left and right before she stood to the ground. Her legs wobbled before she huffed and leaned against the couch. She held up 2 fingers to her lips and whistled. Yuna's crying had masked the painful whistling and before long Kasumi heard lit steps and she, with a little effort, knelt down and noticed the tiny fox, Ryo as Naruto had called him, at the ground looking at her. He smiled and Kasumi scooped him into her hands. She walked over to Yuna and placed Ryo next to her. Why, Yuna-chan, this is Ryo, your partner. Do you like him? Naruto-sama worked really hard with him, Kasumi said and Ryo rubbed Yuna's face with his soft fur and Yuna slightly opened her blue eyes to see Ryo yipping while he licked her cheek. Yuna ultimately stopped crying and just cuddled against Ryo's fur while Kasumi laid back down. She likes him Naruto-sama, Kasumi said with a little smile while she continued to rub Yuna's soft hair and cute ears. With Konoha, Kaiten, Kiryu and no Jutsu, a dozen shinobi shouted and Kyuubi watched as large flames into Tsukasa's face getting a pained roar from her while she stumbled back. Kyuubi noticed people passing her without a glance as they threw their weapons at Tsukasa. They're not attacking me. I wonder if it's because of that Tsunade lady. Well whatever my range of attack is limited. I can't use the Bijudama here and I have to be careful of Naruto-kun's village. Damn it all, Kyuubi thought to herself before she noticed the all-out assault of shinobi on Tsukasa. Kaiten jutsu were being spammed everywhere in front of her as they exploded. Tsukasa roared at them all while her rampage ensued, but a punch from Tsunade sent her skidding back with another thunderous roar. Kyuubi, hurry and help us out. Restrain this beast, Jiraiya shouted and Kyuubi glared at him before she stood up on her paws and charged back at Tsukasa. She quickly lunged at the dragon in front of her and tried to pin her to the ground, but Tsukasa opened her wings and flapped them sending a gust of wind at Kyuubi as a distraction before another tail swipe came sending Kyuubi to the ground. When she hit the ground, Kyuubi coughed and she saw Tsukasa's wings really open. Kyuubi and the other shinobi around her widened their eyes as Tsukasa almost took to the air before Tsunade landed on Kyuubi's tail getting the female Bayu to turn around. Throw me. Tsunade shouted and Kyuubi tossed her tail forward sending the Godime Hokage flying at Tsukasa as she had her fist back and bashed Tsukasa in the face throwing off her flight moment and Tsukasa's back into the ground while Tsunade landed. Hurry everyone. Form a perimeter. We're going to launch an all-out attack. Tsunade shouted and many people nodded as they leapt across the burning buildings. People began to act on Tsunade's wishes as they began their assault. Gatsuga, the UNI members shouted out as they spun with the dogs into Tsukasa's sea. The many members combined into a single large drill and that increased the power while Dragon roared before they blasted past her while she shook her head. She still roared and opened her out to unleash another hellish flame from her mouth as many people panicked. They were ready to meet a fiery end before they heard a roar and they noticed Kyubi jump in front of them as she protected everyone with her tails. The people still widened their eyes that they were working with the destruction of their village long past, but it felt good to have the most powerful Bayu at your back. Kaiten, Gamayu Enden, fire release, toad oil flame bullet. Jiraiya shouted as he sent a roaring fire towards Tsukasa. Standing next to him were Kakashi, Anko, Yugito, Itachi and Sasuke, who were doing their own hand signs as well before they took in their own breaths as well before unleashing the power of their jutsu. Kaiten, Gyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. Kakashi shouted right behind Jiraiya, thinking along the same lines as did everyone else. Kaiten, Ruka no Jutsu, fire release, dragon flame technique. Anko shouted right after Kakashi as she sent her own Kaiten jutsu towards the demon in front of her while Itachi finished. Kaiten, Gunkyu, fire release, great blaze ball technique. Itachi shouted, sending a blazing fireball at Tsukasa, and right after him came Sasuke. Kaiten, Hokkaku no Jutsu, fire release, great phoenix fireball technique. Sasuke shouted, releasing his own jutsu, and Yugito just finished her in time as she laid out her jutsu as well. Kaiten, Neko Enden, fire release, great cat's flame bullet, she shouted, ending the chain of grand Kaiten techniques, and people cheered as the 6 Kaiten jutsu mixed together to create a searing hot flame technique, and it poured over Tsukasa's body as the 6 continued their assault with their fire. Kyubi had to actually back away from it before everyone saw a large explosion and covered their eyes. People saw the explosion settle and opened their eyes. Soon it glared while the others did the same. They only heard another roar before people saw a large white fire pass through the smoke. It ran its course towards them and people covered their eyes before they heard a shout. Fuinjutsu, Ido Kuken no Bunkatsu, ceiling technique. Division of the ceiling space, Fu shouted at the top of her voice, and everyone watched as she bit her thumb and it against the fire. A huge array of seals poured over it and the fire quickly vanished. Fu then opened a scroll and flew off into the air. It took a bit, but people could see the clouds part as a white fire came across them before they noticed Fu shoot down to the ground. Nothing to it, she said, and people grinned happily while Jiraiya patted Fu's shoulder. Nice Fuinjutsu, Fu. Without you we might have been Jiraiya said, and Fu just nodded before they all turned their attention back to Tsukasa. Tsunade-sama, Shikaku-sama has arrived. He said that he wishes to start a plan like the one that Jiraiya-sama, Kakashi-san, Anko-san, Itachi-san, Sasuke-san and Yugito-san had used. He said that he was gathering as many shinobi as he possible could, but it also requires Kyubi's help. What would you like to do? A shinobi asked, and Tsunade nodded. Yeah, start it fast. We'll hold it off. Tell Jiraiya to explain it to Kyubi and we will work it out. Now get moving because here it comes, Tsunade shouted, and the Anbu nodded. People still had to get ready and Jiraiya relayed the message to Kyubi, who had nodded. Tayuya and Kimimaro ran through the buildings and they each threw kunai at Tsukasa before following Yugao's lead and ran to dodge a tail strike. Tsukasa roared out her aggressions against the shinobi in front of her. Kyubi opened her mouth and bit down on Tsukasa's end, knowing that her scaly body wouldn't take much damage, and Tsukasa roared as the two beasts fought with each other. The shinobi trailed along Kyubi's tails while they climbed to the top of her head and all began to assault Tsukasa with their kunai, shuriken, jutsu and many other things. Kyubi's hold soon loosened while she felt a sharp pain to her stomach. She didn't let it show, but she was actually in great pain. Kyubi groaned for a little bit while she tried to hold Tsukasa, which was rapidly starting to fail. No, not now. One of you do something before my grip loosens. This is the wrong time for this to happen, Kyubi said in her thoughts before she heard a shout. Kaiten, Ruka no Jutsu, Anko shouted using her same fire jutsu as before as she sent a blazing fire at Tsukasa's face, but the dragon quickly opened her own mouth and sent a blazing white fire towards everyone. Anko's jutsu stopped it for a bit as they dueled, but she was easily overpowered and the white flames began to race toward everyone before they heard another shout. Amaterasu. Itachi shouted as he strained his eye on the white fire in front of him. Immediately Anko's fire was powered by the black flames of heaven's judgment and they quickly blew past Tsukasa's own fire and almost touched her before Tsukasa stopped Kyubi into the ground, and jumped away with a growl. Itachi glared at her moving form as did everyone else before Jiraiya quickly her in the sea and a seal appeared around her body. Tsukasa roared and tried to strike Jiraiya down. Jiraiya tried to block and was nearly hit, but a tails grab from Kyuubi had brushed him away and allowed him to land on the ground. Phew, thanks for the save Kyuubi, Jiraiya said, and Kyuubi just shook her head at the antics before Jiraiya, Kushina and Fu s their heads together. Fuinjutsu, Iron Kaisaku, sealing technique, eternal confinement, they shouted, and the seals wrapped around Tsukasa's body as she gave a roar of pain when Sasuke shouted, acting his part of the Fuinjutsu. Chidori Nagashi, Sasuke shouted as he, Kakashi and Yugao sent a large wave of lighting across the seals and they activated, shocking all of Tsukasa's body before sending her to the ground. Kakashi, Sasuke and Yugao huffed before they were blasted from where they were standing by one of Tsukasa's tails. Damn it, what does it take to K this thing? Is the plan done? Sasuke shouted as he turned to Shikaku, who had just nodded, much to a lot of Shinobi's relief. Chooser, Chuji, attack! Shikaku shouted, and Kyuubi noticed the father-son duo their hands together. Chobaika no Jutsu, super expansion technique, they both shouted and they towered over the buildings next to Kyuubi before they jumped into the air and rolled towards Tsukasa. Dabaru Nikuden Sensha, double human bullet tank, they shouted as they tried to knock Tsukasa to the ground, but Tsukasa only roared in the moonlight and blocked their attacks with her wings before she spun her body and blasted them away with a loud roar. We're ready, Shikaku said, and people all sighed and quickly turned back to Tsukasa, who was already beginning to get to her feet. She glared at everyone while the plan started. It was very taxing to hold off Tsukasa the entire time, but people managed to do it, and Shikaku appeared with Shikamaru right behind him. They all did their famous hand signs and knelt on one knee in front of their target. Kijime no Jutsu, Shikaku, Shikamaru and everyone else in his clan shouted as they sent their shadows towards Kyuubi. If the entire clan could do it, then even they could take Tsukasa, if only momentarily. The shadows wrapped around Tsukasa's wings, stopping her from even thinking of flight while she roared. Let's begin. Kyuubi go! Shikaku shouted, and Kyuubi roared as she shoulder charged at Tsukasa. She s her entire body into Tsukasa's, sending her back while Kyuubi growled and sent her tails to wrap around Tsukasa's body. She held her as tight as she could while turning her head to the next person in the plan. Shikaku nodded as he and every other member of his clan quickly called out. Inoiki, Ino. They shouted, and a few meters away from Tsukasa and the fight, Ino was with her father as the two did their hand signs together and nodded. Leave it to us. To-san, let's go. Ino shouted, and Inoiki nodded as they quickly released their mind transfers over the entirety of Konoha. Naturally, this would be a problem for Ino, but she was relying on her father's chakra to guide her through the techniques, so she was able to at least get this far. Everyone attack together. Unleash everything. All together. Form your hand signs as fast as you can. The father-daughter duo shouted as multiple shinobi heard their voices. People quickly raced through their hand signs and the sounds of hands into each other was heard, and Tsunade was the final with her voice ringing in the minds of everyone through Inoiki's jutsu. Attack! She shouted, and people shouted as they opened their mouths. Kyuubi move! People shouted in unison, and Kyuubi turned her head and quickly released Tsukasa and dodged to the right while people released wave after wave of Kaiten, Raiten, Futon, and Doton jutsu against Tsukasa. They all and covered her body while Tsukasa groaned in pain and fell to the ground. She growled at them all while most people panted. Damn it, of course. She's Kami's energy given a physical form. Of course she's going to be more resilient than me. Damn it, where are you, Naruto-kun? Kyuubi thought to herself while she noticed Tsukasa's eyes glow red before she glared at everyone else. Damn it, what is this thing? Is it immortal or something? But whatever, we'll still fight. Let's get going. Konoha's not gonna lose. Kushina shouted as everyone raced towards Tsukasa. With Naruto, the blonde dropped to the ground and shook his head while he could see the fires from far off. He glared at the sight and stood to his feet. Hang on everyone. I'll be right with you in just a minute, Naruto said to himself as he flashed his Shinseinigan. He was ready to harass into the fight before he heard a voice. Do you really think that you can save them? You have more important things to worry about, boy, Toby said, and Naruto watched him appear in the same wormhole that he almost got sucked into and slowly fall to the ground. Naruto glared dangerously at him and he could feel the Kyuubi's chakra inside of him boil like never before. You're the team that Kei Kasumi-chan and threatened my daughter. Why the hell was that for? Why are you attacking Konoha? Was it revenge? Naruto asked out offshouted at Toby, and the Akatsuki member just snorted and rubbed his head. Revenge is so pointless. Should I say that I did it on a whim? No, more than that. Ah yes, I find myself teaching a lesson. Ones that people should never forget, especially Konoha. You see, I'm teaching you despair. Just like I taught your father, Toby said, and Naruto widened his eyes. He growled lowly while his whiskers grew more defined, but he kept it under control. My father. He's done this before. Then that means that. This is the guy who Kyubi told me about. The one who controlled her to attack the village. Then Tsukasa is not doing it on purpose. That's good, but then there is how he's even controlling Tsukasa. Tsukasa is really not that different from Kanari-chan if I think about it. He also has the Sharingan. He's not Itachi or Sasuke, that's for sure, and he can't copy bloodlines like I can, so he's got to be the only one who could ever control Kyubi-chan, Naruto thought before realization hit him in the face. Are you Uchiha Madara? Naruto asked, and Toby snickered. He just shook his head at the question. Not as a no, but more as finding it silly that both father and son came up with the same thinking. Who I am is of no importance to you. All you will need to know is despair as the light ravages your village. Everyone will today just like your mother should've. Seems that I underestimated her longevity. And once Konoha falls, then I will come for you, Kyubi Jinchuriki. I will take Kyubi back, and you know what? I will use it to ravage the nations. Who knows what world your daughter will grow up in, especially without a mother, Toby said, clamping 2 chains to his wrists. Naruto was furious. His hands balled and his Shinseinigan was glowing in intensity. Right now, he couldn't use the Sharingan out of disgust. He was sick of that dojutsu. No, he can't say that. It wasn't the Sharingan's fault. It's only a tool, it's not the user. Still, he wouldn't use it here. No, he would show off the might of his own dojutsu. Damn it, I have to take him here. If I leave, then he will follow me to Konoha, Kasumi, and anyone else who will be there. It'll be a bigger struggle than it already is. This isn't good. But Uzumaki Namika's Naruto doesn't give up. Naruto shouted in his mind, and he grabbed Raiga and charged at Toby while Toby did the same to him. The two continued to run at each other, and Naruto gave a quick blade strike before he gasped and saw his sword and his body pass through Toby's own. His eyes darted left and right multiple times before he completely passed and was grabbed by the chains. He cursed as Toby tried to flip him over, but when he was in the air, Naruto harashined away and dropped to the ground. He glanced back at Toby, who was smirking. If the blonde was anything like his father, then he would know by now of the way to hit him, but Toby wasn't stupid. No, he was ready this time, but Naruto was unpredictable for a reason. What I say it at the last second, but I know that his chakra vanished on me. The way he used those chains complemented that phasing ability of his. Is that a product of the Sharingan? Naruto wondered to before he came across another thought. Also, that last time, when I lunged at him with Yugisa, I passed through him as well. It was only after I did that he grabbed me and tried to suck me away. I can only hit him if he attacked me. I have to move faster than he does. It's all down to speed, but there are 2 problems. He's experienced in that concept. I can't go about it normally. 2-chan must have been able to hit him at one point, and he hopes that I will mimic the same. It's down to my father's jutsu again, but I can't use the same way that 2-chan did. He'll expect it. Wait, yeah, he'll expect it. That's it, Naruto said in his thoughts, and he gave a low grin. One that Toby didn't notice. The blonde unsheathed Sira and Fukun. He then quickly placed a chakra restriction seal on them both, and on their handles were a Haraishin seal. Once he makes his move, then I will cast him in an eternal genjutsu while I extract Kyubi from his body. I just need to grab him one time, Toby said in his thoughts while Naruto acted out his plan. 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. Let's hope this works, Databio, Naruto thought as he quickly did a sharp turn and ran at Toby. Toby eyed Naruto's moves, and the blonde quickly threw his Sira and Fukun at the same time, but Toby noticed that they both were in different positions. Fukun was aimed at his head and Sira was aimed at his legs. Toby snorted at Sira and ignored her as the 2 swords passed him as Naruto and Toby drifted closer together. Closer, closer, closer again. Fukun and Sira effortlessly and successfully passed through Toby while the man eyed Fukun specifically. He reached out his hand for Naruto's shoulder as the two drifted closer. The Shinseinigan and Sharingan of the individuals casted against each other's eyes as they nearly passed. Closer a little more. Naruto held out his hand and quickly made a Rasengan and then decided to try something else as he added Yoten chakra to it. The Rasengan turned red and dark instead of blue like it should have been, and Naruto brought it closer to Tobi's mask. The two reached for each other, but Naruto acted first. He vanished in the Hiraishin and Tobi smirked. "Fool, I know where you're going. It's my win," Tobi shouted as he turned his body upward to catch Naruto. He wasn't anything new. He was just like his father. He had caught the blonde. Tobi reached out his hand and tried a grab, but his hand hit nothing as he widened his eyes. He saw Fukun was gone and Naruto wasn't where he thought he was. No. Naruto Hiraishin to Sira, who had flown past his legs. The blonde flew under him and Tobi cursed. He jumped to the opposite weapon that I didn't think about, Tobi said in thought, but he couldn't move from his current position. Naruto grabbed Sira while Fukun launched into a tree. Just like he had planned. It worked perfectly. He twisted his body with Sira in his hand and he brought her back while using that momentum to bring his newly formed Rasengan to Tobi's stomach. Rasenyogan, spiraling lava sphere, Naruto shouted as he s Tobi in the sea. Tobi coughed from the hit while Naruto grinned darkly. New Hiraishin, level 3, Naruto said before he sent Tobi into the air. The masked man groaned from the hit before Naruto grabbed Sira and threw her at Tobi with precise accuracy. She quickly appeared behind him and Naruto Hiraishin to her and did another. He formed two balls in his hands and shouted. Rasenrengan, spiraling cereal spheres barrage, Naruto shouted as he s Tobi in the back and sent him flying fast into the ground with a crash. The ground shook from Naruto's power as it erupted in explosions. Naruto quickly stopped and placed the Hiraishin seal on Tobi's back before he backflipped away. The blonde recollected Fukun and sheathed her while Tobi coughed. He stood up, but with much difficulty. Damn it, I was fooled again. How did I not see that? He really is his father's son. Always a damn troublemaker for me and my plans. Well, that doesn't matter as I can still. Ugh. Tobi gasped as Naruto Hiraishin to him and quickly pierced Tobi with Sira, activating the chakra restriction seal that he had in place. What? He marked me somewhere in that assault. Tobi wondered before Naruto left Sira there and deactivated his Shinseinigan and quickly did his Byakugan. He took a stance and quickly moved, trying to get in as many hits as possible. Yukan Ho, Haka Rokujuyan Sho. Haka ni Sho, Yon Sho, Haka Sho, Uroku Sho, Sanjuni Sho, Rokujuyan Sho. Naruto shouted as he s all of Tobi's chakra points and pinned him to a tree. The masked man coughed and groaned before he was face to face with Naruto again, and the blonde ed his fist back before he s Tobi across the jaw, sending him crashing through the trees and the ground with Tsunade strength. The blonde quickly Hiraishin to him and punched him across the plains again. Again. Naruto's rhythm got faster and faster as Tobi took hit after hit before he was s into the ground. Now you're going down, Naruto said while Tobi coughed. That's right. Why don't you kill me and let your village fall? Spending time with me and the light is still fighting. A waste of time, he coughed, and Naruto glared at him before he picked Tobi up and s him in the stomach. A seal appeared around him and he widened his eyes. This seal. A contract seal. He wondered, and Naruto dangerously glared at him. And now Tsukasa is no longer under your control. I have things to protect in that village. You won't win, Naruto said, and before he could finish the job he backflipped away from a downward S while Sato pulled Sira out of Tobi's stomach. Tobi dropped to the ground and coughed. You might win today, but the light will be mine. Just like Kyuubi. There are plenty of ways to go about it. Remember that Rokudaime-san, Tobi said as he and Sato vanished away, leaving Naruto to wonder just how he did that if his chakra was restricted. That tone. He wasn't kidding. But I'll have to think about his later. Right now, everyone needs me, Naruto said as he looked off into the distance. With Tsukasa. Tsukasa's roared in the village as her red eyes began to shift. They stopped glowing red and turned yellow, showing she was in control, or not. Tsukasa roared again as her natural instinct took over. Instinct to protect herself from any threat, and that threat just, unluckily, happened to be Konoha. A puff of smoke came from a building as soon as it appeared. She quickly applied all of her chakra as she could muster, and with a single punch, she and Kyubi, together, pushed Tsukasa out of the village as the shinobi rallied against her. Tsukasa roared at them while Kakashi, Sasuke, Kiba and Kurenai jumped into the air and each threw 3 kunai explosives at Tsukasa as they exploded on her body before Tsukasa s the ground with her claws. People gathered around her before Tsukasa roared and opened her mouth. She was ready to unleash a massive fire on everyone before they heard a large flash of hand signs. Immediately Kyubi disappeared, and before she knew it she s on top of Tsukasa's body, sending her into the ground with a heavy crash, and everyone saw a flash of yellow lightning and people widened their eyes in happiness as Naruto stood on top of Kyubi's head with his arms folded. Rokudaime-sama. He's here, and look, he's controlling Kyubi to help us. He mastered his Beiyu, someone said, and people smiled while Kyubi growled. HMPH, if that wasn't half true then I would be so pissed off right now, Kyubi said, and everyone gasped as they noticed Tsukasa roar and open her mouth. She was ready to unleash a white fire on everyone while Tsunade and the other readied themselves for the attack before Kyubi s her claw over Tsukasa's head, sending her further into the ground. In the distance, everyone could see a large white fire over the area of source, and they noticed that Tsukasa was gone. People looked left and right, but no one could find Naruto either. With Naruto quickly gasped and panted slightly as he appeared with Kasumi and Yuna in his arms. He huffed and coughed slightly before Kasumi slowly coughed as well. Naruto-sama, Kasumi said, and Naruto just smiled at her as he took her towards a small stone structure. Kasumi turned her head and she noticed Tsukasa in the distance looking for anything to destroy at the moment. She set her sights on Naruto and Kasumi while Kasumi held Yuna tightly in her arms. Naruto narrowed his eyes and sighed. To think that she was placed inside you without a seal. As expected of Kami-sama, but Kasumi-chan, if Tsukasa is like Kyubi-chan then there is no one who will be able to handle her, Naruto said, and Kasumi frowned. She shook her head back and forth while Naruto looked at the ground. In Toussaint's library I had found the Beiyu containment jutsu. I modified it to work without the Shiki Fujin. Kasumi-chan, I don't want to do it, but chancing the fact that you might s from it is. Naruto stopped as he suddenly heard Kasumi shake her head and give an outburst. No, please Naruto-sama, anything but that. I just told that man that you were different from your father. We swore that we would be around. This isn't how Tsukasa acts. We can snap her out of it, Kasumi said, and Naruto shook his head. Kyubi-chan told me about Tsukasa's instincts. They won't stop until she is either entirely sure that she is safe from harm or if she is sealed. You know as well as I do that there isn't anywhere in Konoha that she will feel safe. Also, I don't know what people of other nations will try to do to her if she runs around. I am different from my father Kasumi-chan. I don't want this, Naruto shouted, and Kasumi stared wide-eyed while Tsukasa drew closer. She snarled at them both before Naruto s his hands together. I'm going to seal her inside myself. With any luck, then the Yuki in my body will take it down and she will be suppressed. Kyubi-chan is already out, so this shouldn't be too hard, Naruto said before he felt Kasumi's arm around his waist. No, Naruto-sama. I love you. Everyone else loves you too. What will we do if you're gone? I can't let it happen. Kasumi shouted, and Naruto sighed as the two parents saw Tsukasa open her mouth. She roared and sent a large white fire at them both, and Naruto cursed as he s the ground, hard. I've got a family to protect, Tsukasa. We might be friends, but you will not hurt them. Satetsu, Tsukitozanai iron sand, impenetrable wall, Naruto shouted, and a huge blast of iron sand expelled from the ground and blocked the fire with it. Kasumi breathed a sigh of relief while Naruto sighed. Then there is only one other option, Kasumi-chan, Naruto said, and Kasumi gasped while she shuddered. Naruto could see the fear and anxiety in her face, and it really saddened him. He didn't want to do it. He really didn't, but he would have to. It pained him to even want to do this, but as a container then he could understand it as well. However, he would at least make it so that they were around. Kasumi-chan, I'm going to seal Tsukasa in Yuna-chan, Naruto said, and Kasumi widened her eyes. No, Naruto-sama. Why? This isn't how it should be done. They are going to hate her, just like you and me. We know the life you lived. I don't want that for her. Can't you understand? Why can't you seal her back inside me? Kasumi asked, and Naruto shouted. Because if I do then you will probably S from it. I can't do that. I can at least make it so that we're around. Kasumi-chan, I don't know what else to do, Naruto said as the pressures of the Hokage's village were finally catching up to him. Is this what his father had to deal with? All his life he had thought of things to do with Kyuubi rampaging, but to actually experience it was something else. Nothing in Naruto's arsenal would help him at this time. He knew that he could very well use his Sharingan on her, but that wouldn't stop her urges, and with her being this wild then he didn't know how it would hold. Naruto-sama, she's our child. Yours and mine. What are you thinking? Kasumi asked, and Naruto smiled as he looked at the sleeping child in his arms. Simple, that she'll take after her old dad and master Tsukase's power. Just like I'm doing with Kyuubi. It can be done, Kasumi-chan, Naruto said, and Kasumi just closed her eyes. She sighed and looked at the sleeping Yuna in her arms and gently placed her on the ground while she crossed her fingers. Naruto raised an eyebrow before he heard her shout. This is all the chakra I have left, Naruto-sama, Kasumi said to him. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, she said, and a clone of Kasumi appeared next to her before it ran and jumped into the air as it shouted while Naruto allowed both sand and iron sand to swirl around. Sutenkyaku, Heaven's Kick of Pain, the Kasumi clone shouted as it s Tsukasa in the head, sending her to the ground with a heavy crash. Satetsu, Kazoku Hokaku Ketsugo, Iron Sand, Noble Capture Binding, Naruto shouted, and the sand wrapped around Tsukasa's body as her wings were tied down. So were her legs, arms, and tails. Naruto glanced back to the real Kasumi holding their child before she gave her to Naruto. Naruto took Yuna into his arms and cradled her softly while Yuna continued to sleep. He then glanced back to the real Kasumi, who just nodded and smiled. We'll be there, right, Naruto-sama? Kasumi asked, and Naruto nodded as he flashed through his hand signs. He s his hands together and walked up to Tsukasa and was about to touch her, making Tsukasa growl out before she broke through the sand and sent her claw crashing down upon Yuna's small form while Naruto and Kasumi widened their eyes. Both parents moved and were ready to intercept the assault as Naruto shouted. Kaiten, Naruto spun and Tsukasa's claw was blasted away while Naruto fell onto Kasumi's back. The blonde winced at a large scar that appeared on him and coughed. Ready, Kasumi-chan? Naruto asked, and Kasumi turned to him. She let a small tear fall down her face before she nodded. She felt a little lightheaded, but she pushed the urge to pass out, down the list. Listen, Yuna-chan. This is mommy talking. You know, I find this situation rather weird. When I was pregnant with you, Kushina-sama told me of the last things she thought she would ever say to Naruto-sama. It's weird, isn't it? Well, Yuna-chan, I wanted to tell you this. Yuna-chan, you are mommy and daddy's baby. Our baby. I love you so much. Naruto-sama does also. He's your father after all. Please, Yuna-chan, listen to my words. Grow strong, just like your mother and father. Learn from Kyuubi-sama and Kushina-sama. Behave with Ryo, your pet summon. Also, keep your father's will and remember this. All boys are evil when they are teens, Kasumi said. Hey, Naruto said with a chuckle while Kasumi smirked. All boys except your father, Yuna-chan, Kasumi said, and Naruto chuckled while Kasumi turned to him. The blonde nodded and sighed. Hey Yuna, this is Papa. Mama said her part and let Papa do his. I'm ashamed, Yuna-chan. If you hate me then I will accept it for what I will do. I know we'll be around, but it's no excuse at all. I am the Rokudaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato. You will always be loved. Always remember that, Naruto said, and he nodded while Kasumi nodded also. I'm ready, Naruto-sama, she said, and both parents of Yuna closed their eyes and smiled, ready to accept the consequences of their actions before they heard a shout from behind. Man, what did I tell you to? When you have this child, protect it. Kyuubi shouted as she pinned Tsukasa's arm to the ground. Right behind her was Kushina while Naruto sighed. I don't know what else to do. Kasumi and I are going to be there for Yuna-chan, but I don't think that Kasumi will survive the process if I sealed Tsukasa back in her, Naruto said, and Kyuubi sighed. Oh, you didn't know it. Well, Tsukasa isn't comprised of Yoki, Naruto-kun. Her energy doesn't need to be adapted to anyone. She can be sealed inside anyone and they will survive. It might have been a semi-painful process of extraction, but sealing her is easy. Just do what you do to Kasumi. It will work, Kyuubi said, and Naruto just widened his eyes and nodded. Fuinjutsu, Fujikome Sechaku Fuan, sealing technique. Containment bond seal, Naruto said, and a large light appeared over his hand as he touched Tsukasa's forehead. She growled and roared at him, but Kyuubi and Kushina kept her pinned to the ground while Naruto physically dragged out the white fire from Tsukasa's body and attached it to Kasumi's stomach. Tsukasa roared before she was quickly sealed away back into Kasumi's body where she belonged. Kasumi touched her stomach and smiled. "We'll talk later, Tsukasa, but I know that it wasn't your fault." "I don't hate you," Kasumi said in thought while Naruto turned to Kyuubi. "Might wanna get out of here. The village is as riled up as it should be," Naruto said, and Kyuubi nodded. She quickly vanished into Naruto's seal where she felt a lot of safety while Naruto sighed. "Ka-chan, was it the same for you? I could feel my heart tear at the thought of sealing Tsukasa into Yuna-chan. I didn't want to, but I was in a hurry. I must be a poor excuse of a father," Naruto said, and Kushina just patted Naruto's shoulder. "You aren't Naruto-kun. You didn't. You found a way. Tsukasa is back where she belongs and Yuna has both of you, but if you keep her there then no doubt the village will think of it that way," Kushina said, and Naruto agreed as he quickly gave Yuna to Kasumi and he harassing the two of them home to where they could rest like they wanted. No sooner than he'd done that did Tsunade and the others come ready to fight before they saw the field vacant. They looked left and right, but no sign of Tsukasa was given to them. "Brat, what happened? Where are Kyuubi and the dragon?" Tsunade asked, and Naruto just huffed and shook his head saying that he would say later. Right now he just wanted to go home, but he couldn't even do that. "I ended Tsukasa. She's gone back to where she came from. You don't have to worry, but Tsunade, there will be time for that later. Right now please go to the village and give me a number count of the people alive, and incapacitated. I want to do this as fast as possible," Naruto said, and Tsunade nodded. Most of the people erupted in cheers, but they didn't last long as Naruto ordered them to move. Everyone vanished and left the blonde alone. He sighed and he noticed that he could see the sun rising. A brand new day, huh? Great, well I guess we'll go and assess the damages. No doubt I'll have to call some favors from Gaara, Mei-chan and Aoji. Geez, that was something else. However, that guy, Madara Uchiha, he's real and he's back in action. "To-san, I think things have just taken a turn for the worst," Naruto said before he got up and vanished in yellow lightning. A little later, people were frantically screaming at the Hokage mansion for an explanation to last night's events. How could they not actually? They were well within their curiosity to do so. They knew that they had to thank Kyuubi for saving them, but also seeing their Rokudaime Hokage control her was a definite plus to the village. It just proved Naruto's power to them and his ability to stay in control. The damage that Tsukasa had done was rather extensive as many places had destroyed buildings, claw marks, a few fires, and Naruto didn't even want to know the death count, but he knew that it was his responsibility to know. He had wondered where Sarutobi was, but he aged Sandaime had been restricted to his bed as he watched everything happen. It showed that he was nearing the end of his life. Naruto snapped out of his stupor in the cage chambers just in time to hear Kurenai finish the end of her report about the people. The number of incapacitated people is about 550. The village as a whole is alive as we were more prepared for this having done the Kyuubi incident. For the civilians that number is 313. And the shinobi force is 138. That means that those who didn't make it nearly over 100 people, Kurenai said, and Naruto just nodded. He sighed and pinched his nose. "Kurenai-chan, tell the people that they will begin construction later. Right now, everyone is very tired and confused. We will sort all of this out tomorrow. You are dismissed as well. Also have Bar-chan send out a message to Suna, Kiri, Kumo and Wave. Looks like we're going to be needing some help," Naruto said, and Kurenai bowed before she spun on her heel and left. Meeting adjourned. "I will answer any and all questions tomorrow," Naruto said, and the civilian council as well as shinobi council merely stayed silent, got to their feet and walked out with Tsume and Kushina looking back at Naruto one more time before they went off. "Precious Gaki?" Jiraiya asked, coming down, and Naruto just looked at the table in front of him. "Ero Sennin, I almost went back on my promise. I told myself that Yuna wouldn't experience what I did, but I would have done it if Kyuubi-chan didn't explain to me just what Tsukasa's power could do. Would they hate her just like me even if they knew I was around?" Naruto asked, and Jiraiya just sighed. He shook his head and patted Naruto's shoulder. I don't know Naruto, but this village loves you as its Hokage. Think about it, Minato had to use the Shikifuan to get it to work. You didn't. Even if you sealed that thing inside your daughter, then she would still have you and you could relate to her and even help her master its power. Who knows, she might end up as friends with it just like you did with Kyuubi. Don't see yourself short, kid, Jiraiya said, and Naruto just nodded. He stood to his feet and glared. Also Ero Sennin, its name is Tsukasa and it wasn't her fault. She was controlled, I know it, by the same person who controlled Kyuubi-chan. I fought him in the woods. He said he was Uchiha Madara and I believe it's so. Ero Sennin, I don't know, but I think we're about to be on the brink of something, Naruto said as he walked off, leaving Jiraiya to ponder those words. UNI compound. People were all resting or sleeping in their houses when Naruto came through. Kushina had laid on the bed and some people laid on the ground. Where is Kasumi-chan? Naruto asked and everyone glanced to each other. Kiba pointed upstairs and Naruto nodded with a smile while he walked up the stairs. She's our child, Naruto-sama. I'm so happy, Kasumi said, and Naruto nodded before he gave a frown and sighed. Kasumi-chan, I want to apologize, Naruto said, and Kasumi turned to him. She had a good idea of what he wanted to apologize for, but she stopped him as she slowly lifted Yuna and rested her on Naruto's lap while Kasumi laid down. No, Naruto-sama. I think it was right. Options were limited for you and it's not like we were going to rest there. I know you had the best intentions, but would you have told the village if Yuna was Tsukasa's carrier? Kasumi asked, and Naruto stood silent for a bit before he looked at the small child in his arms. Nah, at least no time soon. If they know me, then they would know that Yuna-chan isn't Tsukasa. However, I know that people would hate her for their loved ones and I didn't want that. Besides, no one ever knew you were her carrier, so it makes sense that they don't know now, Databio. I'll keep it that way. So, how is Tsukasa doing? Kyuubi-chan told me that the only reason she continued to rampage was because her instincts kicked in and she fought to survive, which I can understand, Naruto said, and Kasumi sighed as she stroked Yuna's hair. Tsukasa has been silent. I've tried talking to her, but I can tell that she's ashamed. I had gone to see her, but she very disappointed in herself. Says that she lost my trust and how pathetic she was at getting caught, Kasumi said, and Naruto sighed. Well, if she's anything like Kyuubi-chan, then she is susceptible to genjutsu also. I believe so. Don't worry, Kasumi-chan, she'll come around. We both know Tsukasa very well after all. I'm sure that it will be all right, Naruto said, and Kasumi just nodded her head before she and Naruto spent a little time next to each other along with their child in their room. Tobi quickly dropped to the ground and coughed while Nagato and Konan glanced at him. The latter obviously a little glad that he looked so ragged, but why she had wondered. Do it now. If you are going to have any chance of getting the Nibi and Nanabi Jinchuriki, then you will have to do it now while Konoha is weak. If you give them the time to maintain their forces, then everything will have gone down the drain, Tobi said as he slowly and painfully leaned against the wall while Nagato and Konan glared. What did you do? Konan asked dangerously while Tobi just grinned and leaned back and coughed while Sato tended to his master's wounds, though he still wondered why he was doing so and why he felt like he was forgetting something. Something very important to him. Konohagakure, hospital room. Shizune groaned as she opened her eyes and she noticed Haku looking at her with a small smile on her face. Shizune shook her head and she noticed she was inside the hospital. However, soon everything caught up with her and she leaned up fast. Yuna! Shizune shouted before she gripped her head in pain as Haku gently laid her back down to the bed. Easy, Shizune-san. You're fine, and so is Yuna-chan. She is back at home sleeping with Naruto-kun and Kasumi-san, Haku said while Shizune just breathed easily and leaned back. She turned her head to the right to look out the window and noticed that the sun was out and the village was an entire mess. Destroyed buildings, ruined streets and multiple claw marks and debris little the area. What happened while I was out? Shizune asked and Haku sighed. She looked left and right before she closed the door and began to tell Shizune of the events that had transpired in the village since she was out cold. It had shocked Shizune of how much she had missed just from a very precise S to the head, but she knew that it could have been much worse. And that's when Naruto took Kasumi and Yuna home. Since then no one has been able to find the culprit, But Naruto-kun told us not to be concerned with him as our village doesn't have the resources to fully find him. Not to mention everyone has been fighting all night and people are tired. Naruto-kun has held off giving us a chance to recuperate. I believe that it is for the best also, Haku said, and Shizune sighed. And why aren't you resting then? Shizune asked, and Haku merely looked at a chart of new arrivals to the hospital in the last 2 hours and knew that she would be pulling some shifts as would the rest of the medical department. Well, I have Tsunade-sama's orders to help at the hospital with all the people that we've taken. I've been rather busy tending to some of them, but Tsunade-sama tells me not to overwork myself. It's just the life that I chose to live, Haku said, and Shizune nodded and closed her eyes. Well, at least we're safe. It seems that the worst is over, Shizune said with a smile before going back to sleep. Haku nodded her head, but she couldn't stop the nagging feeling in the bottom of her stomach that Shizune was wrong and things were just starting, with this being the first incident. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.